I'd like to call this June 30th, 2026 Board of Education regular meeting to order. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell? Here. Mr. Helms?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Mr. Wall?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
All present.
We could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda are strategic priorities. Our district has developed and is currently engaged in a 3-year strategic plan which reflects the values, beliefs, and hopes of our students, staff, parents, and community. There are 4 strategic priorities to the plan: transforming teaching and learning, aligning staff and resources, cultivating culture and climate, and leveraging funding and facilities. Our strategic priorities give actionable focus to our district's purpose and mission and guide the work of our strategic plan. Next, we have public comment. We do have one slip. Maggie Koza.
Maggie Koza, 9812 Hazelwood Avenue. I'm here to talk about the drug testing policy. I listened to the last meeting where you all discussed it, and if I have the numbers correct, in the years of 24 to 25, at Strongsville High School you had 4 positives, and at the middle school you had 0. And then this past year, 25 to 26, it was high school 1, middle school 0. And I listened to the discussion, and I listened to quite a bit of stuff, stuff that gave certain people heartburn. There you go, Rich. That's from me for the heartburn. Because I have it too. And I have it too because we agree with the same things, but we seem to be on different paths to get there. And what I'm asking you guys is to talk to people and listen to the stories around Strongsville, because I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I don't think that you really understand your constituency. It's different here. The demographics are different here. You're only drug testing kids that are in extracurricular activities or can drive to school, right? So you're missing a whole umbrella of other children who are not part of those things. I shared stories, one with Dr. Reba, one with Eric, one with Michelle, that my son comes home and tells me when he hangs out with people. He had a little issue this year with finding his social circle, finding friends to hang out with, found himself in a crowd of people that I would not allow my child to be with, and I think that a good portion of people would not allow their kids to be with. But I don't think that it's necessarily the child that's the problem. When I take a look at the bigger picture, I think it's a parenting problem, especially when you look further deeper into why that child is doing certain things. It's even down to the point where that parent actually lets their child have a vape, or lets them drink, or lets them go to pill parties, as I've heard out in the community. This is a thing. What I really want to point out is that at the last meeting, Eric and Michelle brought up really good points. They brought up really good points as to why this is a problem, and this specific thing that you're doing is not targeting the problem. It needs to serve all students in some way. Because legally, you cannot drug test every single child. This is a public school. I already know the legalities on it. Plenty of people know the legalities on it. In order to do that, there has to be other avenues, and there should be more programs brought in. And I think more than DARE. It's got to be more than DARE. There's so much more today than there was when you and I all grew up. I'm assuming that we're the same age, so we know a little bit of what we were surrounded with when we grew up. We didn't have cell phones in our face. We didn't have social media in our face, amplifying that peer pressure and wiring our brains the way that they are. So when you're looking at these things, when you have to look at something that targets all children. The drug testing stuff, I think, is a waste of taxpayer money. And in a time where you're being scrutinized on every single dollar more than now, especially if you want to go ahead and put things on the ballot in November, whatever you decide to do tonight, these are all the things people are looking into. It's not feasible to just target one subset, a group of kids, it's not helping the overall big picture. It's a huge problem. And that's all I'm going to ask you to consider tonight. And I asked the new board member, you're new. And one of the things I'm going to advise to you is have conversations with people around the community. They will tell you a different story. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes of the June 11th, 2026 work session. All audio recordings will be a permanent part of the minutes and are available upon request from the treasurer's office. Video recordings shall be maintained based on the availability of the selected digital or online platform. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ryben now to get us started on Board of Education Other.
Thank you, Ms. Hausum. So we want to continue the discussion on the levy and the bond issue. So we ended our last meeting, and I think George has got the chart up. We ended the last meeting, we basically said, hey, we've got a variety of scenarios. The scenario that really makes sense for us is to look at combining a renewal issue with new money, whatever that amount will be, and putting in some place reductions regardless of whether the levy passes or fails, and then additional reductions should a levy fail next year. So to get the conversation started, one of the things that I suggested at the last meeting is if we take a look at the renewal levy plus the old 2019 levy, where our funding level, our revenue from those two in 2025 was about $18 million. So to get the conversation started, you take a look on George's chart on the scenario one, you could see an 8 mil levy. I'm looking at row 15. An 8 mil levy generates a little over $18 million. If we put in reductions with $4.5 million, we can meet that 4 to 5 year of financial stability. We could have 90-day cash balance. And so the first part of the discussion for the board to consider tonight is starting with that 18 million as a general discussion point. Do we want a levy that generates more than $18 million a year when passed, or do we want to have a levy that generates less than $18 million? So that's the first part that I'm going to turn it back over to you, Ms. Hausum, for discussion, is starting to have some conversations about the millage and the amount we wanted to generate. And understanding, we'll talk about it later, but understanding that all of these scenarios have reductions that are going to happen regardless.
All right, thank you. Who would like to start? Questions, comments? I think my first question, if you could refresh our memory, I know we've talked about levies in the past. What usually gets the community behind it? What millage has passed?
So our most, I'll pull it up so I can see, but our most frequent passage is anywhere 6 or lower.
Okay.
So we've not had much success anything above that, but again, these are different times. The last levy that we passed in 2019 was a 5.9 mil levy, but we were not deficit spending at the rate we were now, so that's the one context. And I'll pause and George could add his analysis, but when we passed 2019, we were on the verge of deficit spending, but we weren't, so we didn't need as much to keep us afloat for that period of time, where now we're deficit spending, so you're going to need more to address that.
Yeah, we're deficit spending by just getting ready to close out the fiscal year, and we're going to be about, depending on the interest posting tomorrow, we're going to be about 10.4 to 10.7 million of deficit spending this year, and then projected for 11, 12 million next year. So at the rate that's going, we're going to be out of money in 2019. So part of that renewal levy is, or part of an ASCO reduction is to get us back to even, and then sustaining in the positive to make it last for how long we want it to last for. As you're deficit spending, you're coming down to the end, or you're running out of money at that point. So as Dr. Ryben stated, where we were last time, 2019, we were on the verge of deficit spending, was to avoid it, and now we're there. We've deficit spent a little bit last year, and this year we're going to be over $10 million. And then also wanted to point out two clarifying points on the charts here. And these dollar figures for like the first chart and the second chart, they are for if the renewal passes in November, because collections start in the following calendar year, 2027, where if they would pass in calendar year 2027, we won't start collecting until 2028, so that 8 mil levy would have a different impact in reductions, as you can see in the bottom chart. But also want to point out that the renewal levy, the collections of the renewal levy, the current renewal levy don't expire until calendar year 2028. So if this is approved in November of 2027, or 2026, and we start collecting in calendar year 2027, we'll have an overlap for 1 year. And then that overlap will fall after the following year.
Other questions, comments?
I guess one of the things I want to discuss is the overlap. And I've had the conversation with George prior. I think whatever we end up settling on, we need to address the overlap. And I don't want to use the phrase eliminate it, but I want to make sure that as a board, we consider, I don't think we have a wherewithal to go out and say, you're going to have 1 year where you pay more, and then it comes down, right? I think it's going to be enough of a discussion and an explanation to say what we're asking for, although because of the language, it's a new levy. We're intending to allow the renewal to lapse. And so we have a conversation and an explanation to just say you have the existing levy that generates this much money, and we're proposing a replacement that will generate that money plus an additional amount to keep us fiscally responsible. But I think we owe the taxpayer a ballot initiative that whatever that amount is, it remains the same for the 5 years. And not, I think it becomes a non-starter if we have to try to explain that for year one, your taxes are gonna increase X plus Y, and then years 2 through 5, they will lower down to that new millage rate. We have the ability to make the ballot language more complicated, but make it so that the increase is level across the 5 years. And other districts have done that, where they've done things along the lines of the millage and the increase in taxes for year 1 is X, and then for years 2 and what have you is Y. And you can structure a ballot that way. The consequence is the language gets a little wordy and long. But I think we're in a better position as a district to ask for the voter to approve a single increase than try to explain, we're gonna have an increase, plus we're gonna have the old levy, and then that's gonna drop off, and then you're gonna have this new level. So I just wanted to see if that resonates, because I think we need to move forward at least on that level, that whatever our levy ask is, the end result of the dollars needs to be straightforward to understand, so that a taxpayer can say, if this is approved, I can do a simple math spreadsheet, however you want to say that, to compute what my new property tax would be.
If we were to do something like that, George, can you get us a sample language? Like, I would want to know exactly what that looks like on paper, because I'm fearful that that actually might be more confusing than doing it the other way. So I guess that would be my ask, is if there is a way to do what he's saying in terms of the ballot language, I would want to see it before
I'd have to reach out to our attorneys to get
Okay.
it.
If we wanted to kind of do a little research on our own, is that called an incremental levy?
Incremental, yeah.
Okay.
And the other part, I was talking to our attorney today, and this is just more semantics. For It's written under a different revised code as a normal levy, and sometimes when these revised codes get approved, they're done kind of in isolation. So in a normal levy, for the resolution 1, it takes 3 affirmative votes, and then resolution 2 is 4 affirmative votes. For incremental levy, both resolutions are 4 affirmative votes.
Is our,
And then,
sorry,
sorry, Tim,
go
not to cut you off. If we're to do that, these numbers are based on an overlap. So the impact of these numbers would be essentially $8 million of revenue would be less. So the impact of these numbers would be different as well.
is our plan today to come out with like a millage, like have a decision made on the millage amount?
It doesn't have to be, we've done a variety of things in the past, right? So one of the things that we've done in the past is we've come out with this meeting with a number to say, hey, we want to have X mill levy. George, go do your thing and figure out the language and bring it back on the agenda. We've done it where it's been blank. And you guys at the next meeting, you have some time to process and think. Or we've done it where we've had three different, agenda items, and you guys, so for example, I'm just using 8 as the one that I suggested. Hey, let's on the next agenda put 7, 8, 9. We know we're not gonna go above 9, we know we can't survive below 7 for more than a couple years, or drastic reduction, so, hey, let's put 3 of them on the agenda, and then we've got time to process, we've got a community leaders meeting coming up, those are things, and then you just vote yes and no on those things, and whichever one gets the yes votes is what goes forward. So what I would say today's goal is to say, hey, we know we've got to put an operating levy on the ballot. And I think we've kind of narrowed in on November. Now it becomes how much, what's the amount of that operating levy? So if we can get a range, that would be keeping us on track for where we need to go in next meeting.
And now, say with that next meeting, we would have those resolutions 1, whether there's the various options or the blanks, and we just fill them in at the next meeting, which is July 9th, next week, next Thursday. And then following that, we would need to schedule a special meeting to approve Resolution 2 around July 23rd. Based on our current cadence of board meetings, July 23rd is a Thursday.
I think looking at the options 1 or 2, obviously with 0 reductions, you have a 10 mil levy or a 8 mil, and just doing research from communities around the area, like those are too high of numbers from what I've seen and heard. And other districts that I consider elite or excellent, obviously I want us to be there and I kind of expect us to be there. Theirs are more in the range of like 5s, maybe 6. Obviously, we want to take into consideration the amount per person, per household, because that's a very sensitive topic, obviously, nowadays and always, depending upon who you are.
Yeah.
So, tough decisions are going to be made, I think, either way with reductions, and I know we're going to talk about that at some point, but I think we need to come away here with maybe not concrete, but some certain defined areas of what we want to go after, so that way we can start communicating out effectively to everybody.
Is 2030 the target date? Is that why that's what you chose there? Is that just because it's the X year in the 5-year forecast?
It'll be the 4th year in the 5-year forecast.
Okay, but didn't we say we wanted it to last 5 years?
We said, yeah, it was like 4 to 5
5
years in
years.
that range. So this technically would, George, right? If you ended in the 4th year with 90 days, you're going to be able to,
So that would do it.
yeah.
Yeah, we'd be under 90 days in the 5th year, but now the requirement for the 5-year forecast is 4 years.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at a number that was going to do what we needed it to
Right.
do.
One thing I wanted to see if there was an interest in talking about is column 2, if we would draw back 15 million out of the 070 fund. If anyone has an interest in discussing that.
think that gives us options, obviously. I'm more in tune, just the way that I've been digesting this and looking at it, I'm more in tune of understanding the millage amount that we want first. And then, obviously, we can see what reductions are needed for the first option versus the second option. And drawing back funds will help reduce the impact from, the human element. So I'm more in tune with like trying to narrow in on a millage amount and then going from there.
I'm just looking, if we draw back 15 million on that chart too, that would put us, we could, 6 or 6.5 millage. And that would be that sweet spot where we've been able to pass in the past.
I'm with you, Laura. I don't see how we don't draw it back. If we're just looking straight at numbers and we're looking at 6 to 6.5, if we don't draw it back, we're looking at $8.5 to $9.5 million in reductions. When we have a choice not to do that, I don't know why we wouldn't take it. I understand it has consequences in terms of facilities and potentially the bond down the road, but we have an operating we have an operating budget problem today. And we just can't get to the 6 to 7 comfortably without it. I mean, even reasonably. I think isn't 10 million, that would be pretty dramatic.
Yes, we would be, it would be a shadow of ourselves to cut $10 million.
I mean,
Considering we've already cut 2 million going into next year, that would be 12 in a very concise period of time.
That's not a conversation I want to have unless we have to, and we don't have to.
Agree.
So I guess the question I have is if we take the 15 million from the 070 fund, why are we saying that our target is 90 days? Because I look at the 070 fund as good financial prudence. And if we're going to say we're going to pull that away, which has consequences for the bond, which we also say is important, then if the goal is to make it as low as possible, why is the 070 fund something we're willing to sacrifice, but the 90-day cash balance we're not willing to sacrifice? Because these numbers change if we say we don't need, if we change that fiscal prudence standard, that we want to, where we end up, we want a cash balance of 90 days. If we take that to 60 days, it's financially imprudent, but it reduces our requirements.
Well, then we should look at that too.
Okay?
I'm not
I mean, I would
excluding our
advocate, I
option.
would advocate against either of them. I think the 070 fund has value, and it's always had value. It's easy for people to look at it, but part of fiscal prudence is standing firm that we need that amount because it has true fiscal impact. It truly benefits the taxpayer, the same way the 90-day cash balance truly benefits the taxpayer. And it will be a difficult conversation, a challenging conversation, but it's a conversation I think we should consider continuing.
I think, there's nothing you're saying I disagree with, Rich, but what I do think is the taxpayers have told us 4 times that they don't want us to govern that way. And I think it's responsible of us to listen to them. Even if it's not the ideal way to govern, I think they've made themselves loud and clear that they're especially not a fan of the 070 fund.
They're not a fan of taxes.
Well, I get that. But if there are hurdles we can remove, I'm for removing them.
It's just one less argument against us in the community.
And I understand that there's other consequences, but it does help solve it's not like we're just throwing it around, like it's helping us solve a problem currently.
I think it's worth taking the ammunition away. I also, dialing in between that 6 and 6.5 sweet spot, I don't know, now's not a time for a stretch goal.
See, the other question I have for consideration is that we keep on locking into the millage amount, and in other elections, if we look at our history, we weren't proposing allowing one to lapse and replacing it with another one. And so there is an argument that although the language is 6 or 7 or what have you, it's actually that amount minus the 3.37. Again, it becomes a messaging issue. But I would counsel that whatever language we put on the ballot is tortured language, period. The language is difficult to understand. The language is legalistic. It is our responsibility to explain what that means to the taxpayer and their property tax. We always have that conversation of, for a home of $100,000, it will be this amount. As soon as we add mills, as soon as we add the dollar amount it generates, the ballot language will be confusing no matter what. So that resonates with me. I like simple and straightforward, but we also need to be able to communicate to the taxpayer and the voter what the effect is. And to simply say we're going to target 6% when it's actually, that means the increase is 2.7%. I think it's incumbent upon us to actually be clear about what we're asking for the taxpayer, because that 6% is going to be really hard to manage. And the reason it's going to be is hard to manage is because it's not a true 6% increase. It's a 2.7% increase.
So you're going back to the incremental levy, is what you're suggesting?
My suggestion is I think we target around 8 mills, but we do it as an incremental levy so that the effect is even.
And then we lose 8 million.
Which I would want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I can redo these charts.
But then, I mean, yes, but then I still don't see the argument for not moving the 15 million. I mean, if we're saying we're gonna increase it incrementally, and we're not gonna have the $8 million of overlap, I don't know how we justify not moving the 15. I just don't think we can have our cake and eat it too right now. I think we have to choose, and it might be ugly, but I think we're gonna have to make choices. I don't think we can have it all.
I think if we shoot for a higher mill amount, or we're digging ourselves in a hole, people aren't gonna necessarily connect the dots. I mean, it'll be up to us to communicate and connect the dots of 3.37 to 8, and that's only, whatever that math is. I'm not a math genius, but you guys get the point. I think if we go in with like a 5 number or 6 number, that's more digestible as opposed to 3.37 plus this, which we know if we go in with like an 8 or 9 or 10 mil amount, people are just going to see that. They're not going to see, oh, that's really only 6.5, or it's really only 7.5. Okay, I can go along with that. They're just going to see the all-in number and just either have heartburn over it, and that's not purposeful. Either have heartburn over it or, go along with it. But I think we still have to stay with the modest number, whether the 3.37 is included in that or not, to get, and you guys have heard me say this a few times, to get some wins. And we're still gonna have some tough decisions, whether it's the 15 million drawback or whether it's, because it doesn't have to be 15 million, it could be any number,
any
right?
number.
But we're just using it as a mark. I think we
I
need
think
to,
the 15 is the most,
yeah.
because the other amount is
Accessible.
kind of already earmarked for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we go any numbers higher, the history has shown us that, it's not favorable usually.
And I do think the opportunity, I think this is the one we have to get through, the one where we're merging the two and making it one, and then we won't have as often of a cycle as we do right now. I think the next one is the one where we can actually adjust to what you called it, a reach or whatever, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's somewhere down the road. I'm not sure that we can accomplish all of that in this one. I agree with Tim that people are gonna see the final number. They're not gonna be interested in all that math. And I worry that that's gonna hurt us if we go too high.
I agree with that. I think going for a stretch goal right now sounds tone deaf compared to what people are experiencing in their daily lives. And I feel like this plan here, if we do a 6 and say this is what it takes to get us back to green, it's sustainable for now. It's not without cuts, unfortunately. But whose household hasn't had cuts will probably be the response, which is not unreasonable of a position. And to borrow Rich's messaging point, we could talk to them and say, it's a net 2.63 increase. And rather than using it against us, leverage that as a point that we use with them and say, we're not asking for a lot. We're asking us just to get through. And then revisit this when times aren't what they are right now.
When I'm looking at chart number 2, the difference between 6 and 6.5, the difference for $100,000, per 100,000 is $1.46. If we go to the 6.5, it's $1.46 more per 100, but that would save us 1.3 million in cuts. Not sure how you guys feel about.
I think you're kind of honing in on the range, Laura. I mean, there's probably 2 or 3 values there that we could
Yeah.
narrow it down to, and I think you've named 2 of them.
Okay, so for July 9th, we could do a blank resolution. Well, I think we were going to have to do 2 resolutions regardless. A blank one, bringing 15 million back in, a blank one, not bringing the 15 million back in. Are we good with that, rather than George having to have 6
Well, that
different-
resolution would include bringing it,
It wouldn't.
it
Gotcha.
wouldn't.
Okay,
We would just do that separate down the,
okay, it doesn't have.
a separate resolution down the road
Okay.
to bring it back in.
Okay.
But for the resolution of necessity, the 15 million doesn't need to be included. But I think where we would need 2 resolutions is, one, for a standard operating levy that starts collecting in November, and then the second one, because they're different resolutions, then the second one is an incremental, a blank incremental, because that's a separate language in itself,
Okay.
unless we want to entertain that. So I'm assuming, just from what I'm hearing, have both of them. And then I'll update the charts to show what an incremental.
Okay.
Does that essentially narrow us in on a number then? Or is it just kind of,
I think we've narrowed in on a number. This allows us at the next meeting to have between now and the next meeting, to continue to have discussion with the community, and then come back and determine what we're going to go forward with.
have we had a discussion with them on like an amount? Obviously, I've seen that we've said minimal to moderate cuts. We've noticed that among the community leaders is kind of expected at this point. Levy is priority, November's priority. So those are all things that we're hearing from the people around us. So we're taking all that in consideration, and we're essentially aligning to that. Do they have we gotten an amount, or is that where we're,
So we have another meeting next Tuesday.
okay, yeah, I saw
Yeah,
we're having.
yeah, so
And that's
that'll
what we're
give us
gonna, I'm
time.
sorry, that's what we're gonna try to narrow in on, is
We
like a
can
number.
have a discussion with the leadership. We also have a community group that's doing a survey this week, so that'll give us time to get some information from that as well. They'll share that with us.
Yeah, I'd
And
just
if-
be curious to see what that comes about.
Oh, that's fine. I was just going to say, and also, community members can reach out, and I've had some do that. So people who have feedback that they'd like to share, please do that. And I would appreciate, as I've said before, if you come directly to us, that's helpful. Thank you.
The other thing I was going to share is we do have to be aware that the same way the school district has needs, the city has needs, and the city council is having similar conversations for a fire levy of 1 mil. So they've taken the first the first of what they call 3 steps. The first step is similar to ours, to go to the county and get a valuation for a 1 mil levy. Then the second step for them will be to vote to place it on the ballot in November or May. And then the third step was highlighted that the voter is the last and final step to actually make it successful. But there was, at the last council meeting, there was a discussion about that, and I did want to publicly thank, while it's topical, City Council for recognizing that none of us are working in a vacuum. We're all working in partnership for the city.
So, I'm sorry, Ms. Hausman.
No, go ahead.
So I would just, as the board reflects and thinks, it's been a painful month looking at, we're talking about money and dollar figures and budgets and all of that stuff, but all of these dollar figures are people, and they're our student experience. And so, right now, and I'm not talking about Strongsville, I'm talking about in the state of Ohio, there's not a whole lot of love for public education, and there's a big anti-tax movement. This day shall pass at some time. And there were, years ago, there were days where everybody was all on board with public schools and supporting their public schools, and those days will come back sometime. I would just ask, as the board reflects and talks to the community members, you're going to do what's in your heart and what's best for our kids and our community, and I just ask that we do what we can to preserve what we, big we of Strongsville, has built together so that we can live to fight another day. Because the thought of doing something where we have to start to incrementally tear apart what's been built over the last 15 years is something that is not just extremely difficult for, again, this community that's built that together, but a generation of students that will be impacted, because once this stuff goes away, it does not come back for generations of kids. So as we go through this and we think deeply about what the next steps are, it's not we need a W just for a win. We need what we can do to get a few more years down the road, get the temperature of where that climate is, and discuss what's our next 3 feet, what's our next steps, so we can move forward from there. As we go through, just using, I know there's discussions about the 070 and the millage amount, but just as we go and we engage with our community members, and we engage with our community leaders in a couple weeks, and looking at just option 2, which is on there, I would just, for conversation purposes, the board still has the leeway to do whatever they would like in a few weeks. But I would just try to get guardrails of, hey, maybe on that chart 2, we're looking at a low end of 6 mils, because that still equates to $4.8 million. That's not equating the incremental, which is going to be a little bit more of an impact. So we're looking at that range to 6 to 7. Is that fair for where the board is at right now? So as we talk, that's kind of the guardrails, or if not, please share. So that's a livable range for people right now?
Yeah, and we don't have to go with the even numbers either. Like, we could do 6.9.
Yeah.
So I think that 6 to 7 is comfortable for me.
Yeah, no, I like that.
I'm sorry, well, the range was 6 to 7? So when I work out the incremental, I don't need to do it for anything below the 6, just 6 and down.
Mr. Helms, you good with that?
I just know, in my short time, I know that what I've looked at from surrounding communities, it fluctuates, right? And I don't want to compare us to anybody, but I compare us to other people, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's a natural thing to do. Those, knowing for me, knowing the 3.37 and then the 6 is, 2 and change, I get it. Like, I get the ask. But I just am concerned across the board if people are gonna see that and still have some sticker shock of like 6 to 7 still being a little bit of aggressive.
So you want to include something a little lower?
I'm thinking 5.5 to 6.5. I know that's, penny here, penny there, but still,
I can work with
I
that,
just
too.
think that, if we go up, the higher we go up, history has shown us that it's usually not favorable.
I think that, I mean, if it's okay with the board, that's acceptable for the conversations moving forward. I think we can go with that and see what information we get.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Yep.
That works.
If we can transition, there were just a couple other topics under this. There's been talk in the community about, for an operating issue, it can be an income tax issue, it can be a property tax issue. So again, Ms. Hausum, I didn't know if the board wanted to have any discussion on that, but just teeing it up if there's any thoughts or feedback on that piece of it, because George would need that to determine what he comes back with in July.
And I'd just like to start by sharing with the board that the surveys that are going out does include questioning income tax versus real estate tax, so, property tax. So if that, I'd like to wait and see what that information is, but if if other people have, opinions, questions.
I'd like to wait too. This is one of those things where people seem very passionate and very divided. And so I would love to get some signals from the community about what they're thinking. And then kind of meet them there.
Yeah, I'm always for getting more information. I will share, just factually, there is no school district in Cuyahoga County that currently has an income tax. We've talked previously about getting a win. There were school districts in Northeast Ohio that attempted to do an income tax. They all failed. And then for me, the one thing that I continue to come back to, because we've talked about it, we are the number 3, George, today?
2, I believe.
The number 2 lowest property tax city in Cuyahoga County. So I find it, speaking of stretching, I find it a stretch that Strongsville, being the lowest third property tax rate in Cuyahoga County, would be the pioneer for an income tax. But I'm not going to begrudge the community. If the community says this is how they want to provide tax, that's fine. But I just find it practically difficult to imagine Strongsville having an income tax for school districts at this time.
And then the last thing was just to talk about the future of a bond issue, whether it would be on the November ballot or another election. But I do know, number 3, we have a vote there. So Ms. Hausum, I don't know if you just want to let the vote be the discussion there or hold that now?
I was thinking, since that's an action item, we could do the motion, second it, and then discuss it.
So that wraps up the questions that we had on the list for discussion tonight. Gives us good direction moving forward between now and the July 9th meeting. Anything else under this topic for you or any other board members?
Any other questions?
I just want to make sure that we have a clear path forward with what we're going to come out of today and the next meeting with decision-making, right? With a number and say, this is what we're rolling with, this is what we want to roll with in, assumingly November, and we're all confident behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll go on to the next
Oh,
item,
sorry,
which
Jack.
is,
And then next meeting too, also think about a date that we could have for a special meeting.
Okay.
Would have to be when, George?
Prior to, for an operating, it would need to be, the filing deadline is August 5th, so we can't have it that day. So I would say at least a few days before August 5th. So as I said, our current cadence would be July 23rd. And I think there's a retreat in there the following week, and
The
we
third,
can't
yeah.
do it at the retreat, so we would need
Okay.
or I don't, it's up to George as he has to it's his stressful time of getting it down there and making it certified, but it could also be added to the retreat if we want it. We might have to change the meeting structure, I think, or,
Might have to change the meeting notice to,
Yeah. but we could use the
it's not gonna,
30th.
it wouldn't be called formally wouldn't be called a retreat.
Yeah.
I mean, one way or the other, we have to notice a meeting.
Right.
Whether it's a additional meeting or modifying the retreat.
Right.
Okay.
And then if there was a potential bond, that would have to be done prior, the filing deadline for that, the second resolution for that would be July 28th. So that would be I think, when's the retreat, the 29th?
The
30th.
30th.
So it would be prior to the retreat.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we're going to go to the next agenda item, which is taking a look at reduction planning. And so, as we talked about, any of these scenarios is going to have some reductions that go along with it. So George is going to, if the board wants to click on that link that's under the public content, that's what I'll be speaking from. And then George will click on it on the board as well so people can see it. So the first tab that's there is the financial summary. It's just a reminder that in March, we talked about reduction planning, things that we, natural efficiencies that we would have through attrition or department budget reductions. And so that generated, that will go into effect when we say FY '27, that's this upcoming school year. So we've been able to reduce the budget by about 1.8, a little over $1.8 million. 800,000 of that was already reflected in George's forecast, so it only netted a true $1 million savings in the forecast based on the timing of his February forecast. So that's just there. I mean, once we start to build this out, FY '28 will start to populate. So if we go to the next tab where it says reduction planning approach, and this is, you have a handout in front of you. So again, we're going to talk about a lot of details and data and figures, but it's important to take a step back and look at the big picture and see that there's some core guiding principles that when we come together and put a plan like this together, that we follow. So the step one, just kind of the high-level guiding principles, what do? Is number one, we try to protect students, right? We prioritize those reductions that minimize the impact to our kids as much as possible. And then we take a look at, okay, we want to preserve the core. We want to preserve core instructional program safety, so we have that in place moving forward. We look at those things where we can improve efficiency without reducing educational opportunities. We look at how we can implement these in phases so that it's not all at once, but incremental. We started with, hey, what are those natural reductions or budgetary reductions we could make? Phase two, again, is going to try to protect students, preserve the core, and look at efficiency as much as possible. And then phase three is, hey, we've got to reduce significant amounts of money. The core is going to be impacted, students are going to be impacted, staff are going to be impacted. But as we go through this, we're going to continue to communicate transparently, just because I hope people can understand that in a school district, 85% of our budget is people. When we talk about reducing millions of dollars, it is people. And to be transparent and honor our own employees, there is a timeline and a cadence of how we communicate in a way not to do anything but do right by our employees and our community. So there may be things that we cannot publicly disclose, and it's not for any other reason than it's summertime. The majority of our folks are not at work right now, and doing our due diligence to have those conversations takes a little bit of time, but we will provide updates and keep people informed as we go throughout. So with those guiding principles in place, it goes to the bottom that kind of aligns to our decision-making framework, and we'll go through these 4 tabs. So we took a look at breaking down our reduction plan, first under teaching and learning. So that's looking at teachers, and teachers, I'm just using that for conversation. Teachers are much more than just teachers. We have school psychs and speech paths and Title I teachers and district nurse and all of that. So it's any of our certificated staff. And then administration. And so, as we make these reductions, we're asking ourselves the questions, what happens in the classroom, what educational programs and student services are going to change because of these reductions, and there's some examples listed below. As we go to the other part, the second part, this is where we take a look at support staff. So these are our non-certificated staff, so bus drivers, custodians, maintenance, food services, secretaries, all of that, technology, as well as leadership. Leadership is non-union, non-certificated employees that work in this building. And so, you know, if we reduce these positions, what happens behind the scenes that supports students, and how do operations and day-to-day student supports change? And there's some examples about what that looks like. The third area that we took a look at was supplementals, student opportunities engagement. What happens outside of the classroom or support within the classroom, and what's going to change with that? And then finally is kind of that operations catch-all of resources, services, and then family costs with fees. And so those will answer the questions of what resources do we provide and who pays for them, and which of those will change, and some examples are there. And as I said, or as it states at the bottom, and I shared earlier in my comments, this is all trade-offs, right? This is not just, we are moving past the, hey, we can make these efficient financial changes to operate, and really we'll be okay. We are moving through these decisions where these decisions that we make and these reductions we make will have educational and operational trade-offs. It's just not about financial savings. It's about understanding that these decisions have an impact, and those impact, beyond the obvious of it will impact adult people's lives and livelihood, it will impact our students. And so we just need to keep that in mind as we work every day to live towards and aspire towards our purpose. So moving on to the next tab. This is just kind of we're not going to talk about this, but because this is what we talked about in March. But if anybody's saying, where did that $1.8 million come from in phase one that's going to be implemented this school year, this spells it out and gives the details as to where that's at. I'm going to go into those 4 areas of reduction now, unless there's any kind of foundational questions. All right, so let's click on the teacher and ATM means administrative tab. So just to kind of get a lay of the land of how this plan is put together, the top row is always going to have what are we doing. This whole tab is about eliminating or reducing teacher and administrative positions. Again, teacher is that collective term. Column A gives you a big overview about what this is doing. So just to go through row 3 is saying, hey, as a part of this reduction plan, we are going to reduce X amount of administrative positions. As we take a look at what level that's going to impact, I know the positions that make up those 4. Because of what I said in my preamble, I'm not going to share those at this time. But I know those positions, if we have to reduce them, will be implemented and impact our district operations, as well as the high school level, the middle school level, and the preschool elementary level. And so as a part of this plan, what I'm sharing with the board is to reduce expenditures that we will reduce 4 administrative positions. I'm not going to read them all to you, but what we did in the next column is say, hey, what impact does that have on us educationally and operationally? Now, please know that this is a draft because reductions have not been finalized. And so once finalized, this could be more targeted. But if we're going to reduce 4 administrative positions across the district, it's going to create broader responsibilities for those administrators that are retained. And as that decreases, there'll be less direct support, less oversight, because people are going to have more on their plate. We are not overly staffed. We have been understaffed for a lot of years in our district compared to others, and the board has done a good job of helping us right-size that. So when we take a look at this, it's not like, we'll be okay. It's like, no, we are going to have to add to other people's plates, and when we add to other people's plates, things that are not mission critical, that are the nice-to-haves, get pushed off the plate. The last column that's not highlighted or not designated is determining whether it's a phase 2 or a phase 3 cut. A phase 2 cut means that regardless of what happens for our operating levy, it's gone. We're making that reduction, and it probably will not be talked about or brought back during this next levy cycle. So for the next 4 to 5 years, we've got to be prepared to say, it's gone for the next 4 to 5 years. We'll see in better times, maybe we'll talk about bringing it back. Phase 2, because we're talking about people and we have contractual timelines, this would not be put into place until the 2027-28 school year. So not next year, but the year after. Okay? Phase 3 is additional reductions if the levies should fail. So if the board decides to approves the levy for the November ballot, fails, goes on the May ballot, it fails, and you're a phase 3 cut, that will be cut again in the 2027-28 school year. It's just going to stack more money on top of it because of George's charts that we've all seen. Does the logistics of it make sense? Okay. So when we start to get more specific, what we want to do today is to go and do a high-level overview, share what's on the plan. If there's, again, this is an opportunity for the board just to listen, question. If you have things that you say like, no, take it off the list, or, hey, this isn't on the list, I'd like you to consider it, we can do that as well. But the next iteration, when we come back in July, in the months of July, not just the next July meeting, we will start to break this out to say, here's the specific 4 administrative positions we're talking about. Here's then the phases that we're recommending that these positions are on the reduction plan. And then George will be able to figure out, here's the cost savings we would have with the elimination. And so based on the chart we looked at earlier, if we know we've got to reduce between $2.5 to $5 million, we can make that happen based on how many things are in phase 2 versus phase 3. So as we go forward, and again, in these situations, since there's a lot of information, I'm going to keep sharing, but if there's questions or want me to stop, just stop me and I'll answer any questions you have or get your feedback. The rest of, or the majority of the rest of the column, so George, if you just scroll down maybe just a little bit, it's the same header that says reduction of X amount of teacher positions. And all we're doing is changing where those positions are going to come from. Are they going to come from the district, the high school, the middle school, or pre-K to 5? So that's all that is, so we didn't have to say the label of the name of the building over and over. So if we start at the district, what this is saying is in one of these phases, either phase 2 or 3, that we would reduce 2 district instructional coaches. We have 2 media specialists left. We've already reduced 1, so we reduce another one. We take a look at our school psychologists and our speech pathologists and see where their caseloads are at the time to see what reductions can be made there, if any. And then we would reduce 2 positions that we have currently to support student mental health. If we take a look at the high school, we would reduce 2 building support coach positions. We'd reduce co-taught offerings for Clarity. Co-taught offerings are where we have a general education and a special education teacher in the same room. We offer a lot of that at the high school, and so that would something that would be reduced. Eliminate on-campus college credit plus courses, so kids would have to go online or to Tri-C to get their college credit plus courses. We do have English learner staff in our district to provide support for our students that are learning English as a second language. There would be reductions there. We would set required minimum class sizes to run a class. So for example, that may be at the high school level, you have to have 20 kids. If there's not 20 kids, we don't offer that class, and it doesn't matter whether it's AP, whether it's world language, excluding special education, or excluding if we have college credit plus classes because they have certain maximums. So if there's no rule that's governing, whatever we set would be the minimum. It would reduce the number of sections offered. It would reduce the number of teachers we need, that's where you get the savings. And reduce course offerings. Again, we have a robust course selection opportunities at the high school. We think it's an amazing thing for kids to explore, but a lot of those options are not required. So that would be reducing course options, reduces the number of teachers needed, reduces cost. Moving on to the middle school, again, we could, going through, limit offered honors courses. So right now, we offer all 4 honors courses. Those tend to be lower class sizes. Limiting those to say we're only going to offer 1 or 2 or whatever it may be could reduce class sizes and possibly reduce teachers. Reduced course offerings is the same thing as we talked about at the high school, although the middle school course options are more limited. You would be looking at here study halls in lieu of elective course offerings. You're hiring a monitor instead of a teacher. That saves money. Restructuring of schedule, elimination of teaming. The teaming model is something we've had for 30 years at the middle school. The teaming model is a more expensive model to run in terms of staffing. There's options that we would have to talk further about what that would look like going away from the middle school traditional teaming model, which would again reduce the amount of staff that we needed to educate at the middle school. We already eliminated or reduced a high school counselor, so this would be taking a look at reducing a middle school counselor. Looking at the elementary schools, we currently have 5th grade band and orchestra. This plan would eliminate that. We've talked about English learner support. This is just at the elementary level. We have 5 gifted math intervention specialists that provide our gifted services. Though that would be something that would be on the list to take a look at. Increasing class caps, they're currently 25 for 2nd and 3rd grade, up to 30. Reducing 2 literacy coaches, reducing reading specialists, and reducing school counselor. And then finally, some operational miscellaneous expenses are reducing copies. It's an expense that we have, as well as reducing some class coverages costs that we have for internal meetings. And then, although not a reduction, there is an annual, savings from experienced, higher paid staff retiring, younger, lower paid staff coming on board. We generate savings, so that would be, it's an estimate, but factored in. So again, I don't want to lose track of everything that I just said, but I want to reference everybody's attention to column D. So when we take a look at all of these things, and I'm just going to highlight the bold words. At the district level, we're going to diminish district-wide instructional expertise. We're going to have less job-embedded coaches. We're going to have reduced access to specialized services, and it's going to be difficult to sustain instructional improvement. When we took a look at the high school, it's going to narrow our educational opportunities, reduce staffing flexibility, and decrease personalized learning opportunities and increase workloads. Middle school, it's going to impact academic programming, especially at the stage of development at the middle school, and there's going to be fewer course options. At the elementary level, we got to remember in preschool, these are our youngest learners. Larger class sizes are going to make it challenging, as well as the reduction of the supports for learners on all ends of the spectrum to meet their needs with fewer specialized resources available. And then with the operations, we'll have fewer resources to help do our day-to-day operations and have that time to meet and talk. So again, that's an important part to say, what does this really mean day-to-day for the district? Those are some of the things that are just going to be a reality. And we all work extremely hard to ensure that there's not a negative impact to the difficult business decisions we need to make. But I will tell you, it is going to be taking all of this into consideration to continue to be the district Mr. Helms and I and everybody want us to be, that we are and continue to grow to even aspire to be better. It's not going to happen with these reductions. Questions before I go on to the next tab? So taking a look at the next tab, George, we'll go to the support and LTM tab. Again, elimination and reduction of support staff and leadership positions. So if we take a look at the first row, the first 2 rows, this is leadership positions. So again, a lot of employees that work in this building to provide district support. And we looked at 2 options or 2 ways of reducing hours or days. And then the second is just eliminating those positions. So we have 2 positions that we believe we can reduce hours and days if we must. And then we have 5 leadership positions that could potentially be reduced. Again, looking at that, it's going to impact the employees. The employees that we're going to reduce their hours and days are still going to have the same amount of work. They're just going to have fewer hours and days to take care of it, and that's going to reduce proactive support that we could provide in slower implementation. Taking a look at all of these positions, but those 5 leaders, that would decrease our organizational leadership capacity. It's going to reduce coordination around departments, longer response times, delayed implementation. We like to talk about all the strategic planning. I just did our end-of-year summary for our strategic plan, and we've made phenomenal growth in the last 6 months. We're really moving in a good direction. This is going to have an impact on our ability to continue to progress at that pace. I did something a little different here. So still reduction of hours and days as well as reduction of positions, but instead of separating them by district, high school, middle school, elementary school, I just kept them all together just because of the volume. So if we take a look at the first one, we believe that there's 6 positions, support staff positions that we could reduce hours or days, and that we could eliminate weekday overtime for applicable staff. And again, it's going to reduce our operational flexibility. It's going to have to prioritize on essential functions and modify our procedures and reduce responsiveness. The next set of rows are reduction of positions. So we would take a look at corrective learning, which is in-school suspension monitors that we have at the middle school and high school. Holistically across the district, we would look at reducing hours in custodial and maintenance, which equates to reducing positions. Chartwells is our food service provider. We would look at the elimination of them moving forward. Elementary, some food service positions at the elementary, a mechanic position, media center assistants that we have across the entire district. Recess monitors, I'll fix that, but that's just at the elementary level. Support positions that are in this building, special education aides across the district, as well as technology support positions across the district. Again, it's going to reduce our operational support capacity across the district. It's going to reduce supervision and specialized support that we have for our kids. If we take a look at transportation services, again, this fits with the row above, but I just called it out separately because it's uniqueness. So there's reductions that we have on the list. The elimination of the 4:30 rule for field trip, that's more just our language, so we know. So there's an agreement that we have that we set a certain time that will allow more eligibility for field trips, and if we close that window, it would save some costs. And then it just goes into options for busing. So elimination of high school busing services. Again, just so everybody is aware, by law, you have to bus pre-K to 8 at a 2-mile radius, and that's it. So high school and anything below 2 miles is a district's discretion. We currently do 1.25 for everybody. So that's why what's on the list is elimination of high school busing, and then the 2 options of increasing from 1.25 to 1.5, and then 1.5 to 2, or you can do any variation of that, of just going from 1.25 to 2. Again, this does improve operational efficiency. It does reduce long-term costs, but the impact it has on our kids, it reduces their eligibility, fewer transportation options, increased responsibilities for parents, traffic, more cars is going to be an issue for especially our elementary buildings. Any questions on that one?
I have one question. Just in functionally, corrective learning is like in-school suspension, correct?
Correct.
So if we eliminate those positions, does that mean that's no longer a disciplinary option?
No, what typically would happen in the past is that would move into an office area, and office support position, a secretary would be the person that would be monitoring that. That's what we did years ago,
Many years.
many years ago. No,
Not ideal.
no. No.
But Michelle, I do think it's worthwhile thinking through that, because a lot of these, I don't know if seductive's the right word, but you look at them and you can quit, oh, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that, but they all have consequences, because everything somehow is interconnected. So if we cut down on, oh, you don't need that person, you don't need that person, well, suddenly, whether it goes to office staff or suddenly the level of infractions gets adjusted, and now students are left in classroom, which I don't think anybody needs to go very far to find, kids who can tell you that so-and-so distracts us, and all I want to do is learn, but the teacher has to spend all their time with class management. Those are the kinds of things that I think are easy to forget about when you're trying to assemble it. But again, we're very proud of the progress we've made as a district and investing in those kinds of things. Those are the unintended consequences that I think it's important to at least talk about out loud.
I think that's a really good example of when we talk about increased responsibilities for other people. Like, these things do not just go away. You're still going to have things that take place, laws we have to follow, things that still have to be done, work that still is there. And, none of us are built to not do it. And so that's where the increased workloads, and where other things will fall off the plate.
So let's move to the supplementals tab. Again, as we take a look at this similar framework, we're talking about eliminating stipends, supplementals. Supplementals are the contracts we pay people to do work outside of the school day. So athletics, clubs, activities, things of that nature. So the first row is athletic supplemental contracts. So the options that we would be looking at in this reduction plan is the reduction of athletic assistant coaching contracts. We would take a look at then reduction of selected 7th and 8th grade athletic teams. So that would mean, first row is we're still going to have the sports, they're just going to have less coaches to help coach. Second row is at the middle school level, we are going to start reducing opportunities, right? Reducing, a past reduction we had was 8th grade, you only have one basketball and volleyball team instead of two. So those are some of the things that would be under that. And then the third row is something that we still haven't, we're still considering, not both of them, but kind of an option there of, at the high school specifically, and whoever was changing the tabs, get rid of the middle school on that one for me. This would just be at the high school. We would reduce the sports offered. Again, the idea being, looking at whatever metrics we want to look at, we're just going to eliminate this as a high school sport we offer, or we're going to preserve all of the sports, but if they have a freshman team, we are going to eliminate freshman teams, which eliminates coaching contracts, which saves money. All of this is detrimental, right? So again, as Richard said, for every tab we go through, I don't think we should be lured by, hey, it's just an assistant coach, or it's just this sport, or it's just freshman athletics. It would be like saying, hey, we're not going to have 7th grade math anymore, and we're just going to get you guys to 8th grade. So again, options that we have to consider. When we take a look at non-athletic supplementals, again, clubs, class advisors, honor society advisors, all of that would be there. And so as we take a look at it, we would take a look at eliminating non-athletic supplemental contracts at the elementary and middle school. At the elementary and middle school, it's a little simpler. We say you get 5 supplemental contracts. We work with you to provide what the focus of those are, and you get to pick on a yearly basis. There's a few ancillary ones at the middle school, but that's pretty much that piece of it. At the high school, we would, the reason that it's phrased a little weird on this without the details, but the idea would be that we would reduce some at the middle school and high school. And then if phase 3 comes around, we reduce the rest of them. And then at the high school, you'd reduce some, and then you'd reduce more. You can never get rid of all of them at the high school because there's things that we have to have. But this would be the idea of going through and looking at all of our supplemental contracts and deciding which of those that are music-based we want to reduce? Which of those that are club-based do we want to reduce? Which are their class advisors that we want to reduce? And putting that plan into place. Again, we talked about, the impact on athletics here. Part of what we love is giving kids experiences outside of the classroom. And this would reduce those experiences. They would have fewer opportunities. And we all know that kids that are involved and active have a better chance of success than those that just are not. And so it has a significant impact on exploring those interests outside of school. Stipends are just one-time payments. They're not in a contract. They're one-time payments that we pay for people to do additional work. This would take a look at reducing or eliminating the building instructional coaches, which we have throughout the district that help support district initiatives, as well as webmasters that keep our website at the building and district level up to date. So as you can see, this has significant impact, not just in delays in communication and good information on the website, but in terms of the building instructional coaches. The coaching mindset that we brought into the district and the positions have really been a game changer for us. And I think I said in one of the first tabs of helping to provide game time support, strategic in-classroom collaboration and support, and the building and coaches do a variety of work for us. So that's going to be, we're going to go back to 10 years ago where, hey, teachers, we're going to give you PD a couple times a year, and it's going to be great PD because everybody here does a great job, but we're not going to have that ongoing support to help you between August and November and between November and March. And then the final thing here is we do have some employees that have additional days in their contract because their work extends beyond the school calendar. And so looking at reducing those days, again, that's going to have an impact on planning, coordination, preparedness for students when they come to school. So those are negatives that will be a part of that. And then finally, on the operations tab, again, these are just operational reductions that we have. If we take a look at the first part, these all relate to department budget reductions. So the first two are just technology program reductions, looking at moving away from one-to-one at the elementary and middle school level and going back to CARTs. Eliminating outside testing support we have for KRA and Ames Web. So again, this would put it on the teacher to be out of the classroom more, to try to manage that instead of having support to do that. We use some PBIS consultants that would be eliminated. The next about indefinite delay of curriculum purchases, textbook adoptions, curriculum, software, and supplemental resources. Transparently, this one is becoming harder. It's not the old school, hey, we have textbooks, and we will just not order new textbooks for 2 more years. Everything now is consumables. So, yeah, there's ways we could do it, but when the consumables run out, you have nothing. And so saving money in terms of this is not what it used to be. There's not as much there. Again, moving on, delay of tech and media center purchases for hardware and software. The district, through my budget, the high school budget, we provide funds for district instruments to replace and choir music. We've done that for, 10 plus years now. And then, so that would be stopped. We would take a look at, as George presented with Jason and Denny years ago, we're providing additional funding for the athletic department. We would need to look at phasing that out and having the boosters prepared to take on the expenses we can no longer cover. We already reduced building and department budgets this year. The board has seen a spreadsheet George has provided that shares all the reductions different departments have made. Building budgets, what do we do, $10 a kid? Mm-hmm. So we budget based on a per pupil. So we reduced that already going into next year by $10 a student. So we'd have to continue to look at that. Student services, they hold a lot of our contracts for contracted services. So we would be taking a look at and auditing those to see where we can possibly make some reductions. And then again, delaying a specific textbook adoption that we know is coming up. Field trips, we've already eliminated some field trips for non-curricular, our general fund funded field trips. So this would move to eliminating any class field trip that's district funded. That the middle school and elementary are predominantly funded by the SEF, so this would be more high school related where the classes will go on some trips, that would be eliminated. Reduction of co-curricular music trips, so marching band, show choir, any other music trip that's traveling to Cedar Point IX have already been eliminated at the lower levels. And then reduction of extracurricular field trips. So again, this would be clubs and groups and unified sports, that those opportunities would be reduced or eliminated. And again, it's going to save money, but it's going to take away opportunities for kids to extend their learning and real-world learning beyond our school walls. And then student fees, what we would be looking at, this is not a reduction, but an increase in pay-to-participate fees. It's been at least 10-plus years since we've addressed it. Currently, it's $200 for a high school student, $100 for a middle school student, and a family cap of $600. So this looks at a $75 increase. So that would make middle school $175 per sport, high school $275 per sport, and a family cap, keeping with that same algorithm, would be $825. We do charge a trainer's fee of $10 at the middle school, $20 at the high school. With this increase, we're saying that that would just be inclusive. We would not charge that separate one-time $20 fee, $10 fee, but this would all be all-inclusive of the trainer's fee. So again, that's a lot to digest. Wanted to go through it so everybody can see and start to process the information. Again, I'll stop talking here in a second, and any feedback or questions that you have right now. But as we go throughout the month of July, we're coming back with specificity in terms of what actual positions are we looking at. We're coming back with recommendations as to phase 2 versus phase 3. We're coming back with dollar figures that we could pair with the levy decisions that the board will officially and make moving into next month. But if I take a look at the 5.5 to 7 range, we're looking at potentially phase 2 being anywhere from $2.3 million in reductions to $6 million in reductions. So when I come back for that phase 2, George and I would like some are those the parameters, or do we want to narrow that a little bit more so that we can, when we come back and say, here's the specifics and here's what we're recommending for phase 2, we make sure it adds up to the level of reductions that the board wants it to.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate all the work that you and Jenny and George and all the leadership team put into this. I know it's not easy. Again, as Cameron said, we are a people business. 85% of our budget is our staff, and, you know, our staff makes our kids. This isn't easy to see. Any other questions or comments?
I do just have, did you ask us to clarify?
Please, yes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge range. It's half or double.
Yeah.
I think we have to give them something more concrete than that.
So if we go back to that original. So George, can you bring up the 90-day cash on hand, where the 5.5 to 7 is?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So again, I'm sorry, can you ask your question again?
Sure. So next steps, George and I need a target to hit as we cost this out and be able to come with recommendations as to what things should be phase 2, with things that are going to be phase 3. For my beginning discussion of we're trying to protect the student experience, preserve the core, get through this difficult time while still being able to provide the high-quality education, support services, and opportunities we do. So to do that, it would be helpful if we narrow in on a reduction range that we need to, would be phase 2, which is going to happen regardless. So right now, the range is $2.3 to $6 million based on the yellow highlights there. As Ms. Bissell said, that's a pretty wide range. So it would be helpful if we can maybe, understanding that we've got levy decisions to make and we can always adjust, but for the next discussion point, if we can narrow in a little bit on a figure that's not so wide, that'd be helpful.
Anyone have initial thoughts?
I'm looking at the middle point of that as a place to shoot for, which would be probably 3.75 to 4.25.
I was thinking 3, so I could,
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to suggest we go higher. George, what are we currently deficit spending? 10 million?
10.4.
7.4? Next year, we're going to be 10 million?
I think he said 10.4.
10.4, and then it's 12 something.
Okay.
Let's see. About 12 next year.
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is we are really behind the 8 ball. In that because the gap for deficit spending is so large and continues to get larger, unfortunately, Cameron, I'm going to suggest as an exercise, $5 million, because it will be practically, and it's awful to say that, but it will be practically easier to say 5 million, what are we now going to peel back if we're in a position to peel back? But if we come to you with the task of 3.5 million, and then the levy discussion continues, it's going to be, it is a more difficult task to have you then come back, I think, and I want your feedback on it. And I hate to talk about it this way so cavalierly, like we're playing with a spreadsheet, but I think it is easier to say, this is what will accomplish $5 million in cuts, and now we can say, what are we going to pull back, than it is to say, you met our goal line of 3.5 million, and oh, by the way, we now need to find another 1.5 million. So unfortunately, I would argue that at this stage of the game, I would tell you your target is $5 million.
knowing that we could remove before those cuts are made.
Correct. But I hate to use the phrase the exercise, but if we're looking at it as a budgeting thing and we're trying to see where the cuts are, Cameron, one of the things that resonated with me is that you're trying to avoid harming the educational experience. We're past that point. Our decisions are going to somehow impact the educational experience. And so I would rather just suggest if you need a target, $5 million is your target. And because again, that gives us an easier path to say, you know what, all things considered, we got leadership, leader meeting feedback, et cetera. Our target is going to be 3.5 million or 4 million or whatever it is. But I think if we under target it, it will become a much harder conversation to have.
Does that resonate with you, Cameron?
I'm just confused before Cameron. Wouldn't it be indicative of whatever we move forward with the millage amount is for the corresponding reduction? That's where I'm just kind of confused.
But we don't know what the millage amount is.
Right.
And so there's one of the things that I'm thinking of is, when I look at it, is just the dollars and the cents. And then that determines the millage amount. And the millage amount is, you know, again, an 11 mil levy is not a discussion point.
Right.
3 mil levy is not a discussion point. But if we're, you know, personally, I don't know if we need to determine the difference between a 6 mil levy or a 6.5 mil levy. On the other hand, to come up with that, we need to understand what amount of cuts, what is that actually going to entail? We're still discussing at a very high level functions and things like that. Cameron may come back and say, my gosh, 5 million is impossible. But that would be where we would start versus, I'm loath to say to underestimate that amount and then have to do this exercise again. I would much rather say, all things balanced, because that, in my mind, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to balance a levy ask, which translates into an increase in taxes with a reduction plan. So again, for the purpose of the exercise, I would rather have Cameron and his team target a larger budget amount to cut so that we can then understand what that means and then be able to adjust from there.
Just processing all that, they're all undesirable decisions, right? But I do think, as I think about the human element of telling somebody that, hey, you're a phase 3 cut, and then having to go back to them to say, well, I got to cut a little bit more, so now you're in phase 2, is probably worse than bumping them the other way of, you were on phase 2, but now we, don't need as much.
You were safe, but now you're
Yeah,
not.
yeah. So the 5 million is, we can work with.
That's fine by me.
Okay. Any other conversation or discussion on the reduction plan for tonight?
Thank you.
And then, Ms. Hausum, I know I've been leading the discussion, but it is under Board of Education others, so I'm going to turn number 3 over to you.
Thanks. All right, number 3 is a 4% consent resolution. It's an action item, so we do need a motion. Be it resolved that the Strongsville City Schools Board of Education approves a resolution determining that the school district is a special needs district and authorizing the preparation of and filing of materials for applications to, 1, designate the school district as a special needs district pursuant to Section 133.06E of the revised code, and 2, obtains consents pursuant to Section 133.06C of the revised code. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. Do we have comments, questions, discussion?
George, can you remind us and viewers, constituents, what this is for?
Yeah, so what it is for, if we move forward with the bond levy, assuming that we had the May total, we had the amount factored in for a 3% increase. If we move forward with, I guess this kind of changes this conversation. If we move forward with 162 million, which is the total cost, or if we take out the 070 allocation based on the previous discussion, that doesn't seem like it. We would be over our assessed valuation we would be over our authorized amount that we could issue debt for, because we still have the middle school debt that's outstanding based on our assessed valuation. So what this resolution does is ask the tax commissioner to go at least 4% over that amount. And so what this resolution does is get the approval from the tax commissioner. It doesn't bind us to anything, it just fill out an application, we send it to the tax commissioner, and then we'd come back the next board meeting with the resolution for the bond. To get the resolution and necessity for the county to certify the dollar figure.
So this is step 1 on putting a
Step-
bond on November 2026?
Correct. Step 1 of 3 resolutions.
So I'm supportive of it. As George has informed us and the public a number of times, it doesn't obligate us, but it does keep the conversation going, and I'm not ready to stop that conversation. We do have real building needs. So I would like, I don't know if we need to discuss it deeply today, but I do want to, I do hope this has our support so that we can continue the conversation. I don't think we're ready to take it off the table.
I think as we've mentioned before, we still have some data coming in. I'd like to hear what that says.
Does this mean that we could have adjustments to what the bond would look like in terms of scope and everything?
Correct. What
Okay.
this means, if we don't approve this, we're saying we're not doing anything with the bond for the November 2026 ballot.
Got it.
But I want to be clear on Mr. Helms' question. I do not have the time to be able to adjust the scope of the project prior to the timelines George has to meet for the bond project. So what the Foundation for the Future Facilities Plan that was on the May ballot would be on the November ballot, simply for a fact of if there would be any adjustments to that, there's just simply not the time to make that happen.
What there is time is, as an example, we discussed before the idea of keeping the millage the same and finding a different way to deal with the increase in the cost. Those options are available, but Crammond's correct. It's not like we do not have the time to say, hey, the previous plan was 3 new school buildings, and now this plan is 2 new school buildings. That portion is there, but if we don't approve this today, there's no discussion for November.
But this isn't a determination of, yes, this will be on November. Okay.
But the follow-up at the next Thursday's meeting would have a resolution of necessity for the amount. So what, I guess, where are we at on dollar amount? It would be keeping the dollar amount at the 147 or 158? If you said we would keep it the same ask, so we would reduce, if the potential plan was to use the 070 to offset the operating, I guess what would be the ask here?
I think with our discussion tonight, it would have to be the 158.
Or okay. Or do we want to look at the 3% increase? Just kind of need direction.
Run the timeline again, George. The next one would be
Next Thursday, July 9th.
next Thursday, July 9th. Wow, how is it July 9th, the next Thursday? And then when would the last one be? The 23rd-ish?
The 23rd. That one has to be approved earlier than too many things. It would need to be filed to the county by July 28th, so prior to July 28th.
And when are we expecting feedback loops? We know July 7th is one.
July 6th, actually, will be some feedback from surveys. And then we have the leadership meeting on the 7th. But the results from the last leadership meeting, everyone was pretty consistent with move forward with the operating levy first.
And so what you're saying is if we say yes to this, you have to have a number for next time,
I also have to give them a number when we approve this
today.
today to send to the county. I mean, we could always back off, but we can't add more to it. So I would just put if this is approved, I would file with the tax commissioner the 162, but for next Thursday, we would need a number to have the county certify it.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
We just talked for an hour about having an operational crisis. I have no idea why we would be having a conversation about bonds. From my perspective, it is completely off the table. So it will be a no for me because I would never move forward later on. The house is on fire, guys.
So, and just to be clear, the house has trailers, and we have 4th and 5th graders that are spending their entire day in trailers. And we can continue, I mean, if, there's no reason for me to be one person wanting to continue that conversation. But I would like to continue that conversation because we're choosing to put that off for
I hear you.
bare minimum a year. Most likely, we're choosing to put it off for 2 to 3 years.
My choice is not to get rid of trailers right now. It's, are we going to have 40 students in a trailer? And so I would rather solve the operational challenge, get teachers.
Any other comments, questions? George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
No.
Mr. Helms?
Wish it was as simple as a yes or no. Am I still allowed to ask questions, or
I think so.
there's still a lot of homework to do between now and the 9th in order for this,
For,
like the bond portion? Because I want to continue the conversation, but I don't know if it lives as is today. And Cameron, I'm obviously sensitive to that, and we just can't upend it. I understand that. Because I'm just thinking out loud here. Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
No.
Mrs. Hausum?
I agree with Eric. We've got to work on the operating levy. No.
Motion failed.
George, for treasurer's report.
Yep, thank you, Mrs. Hausum. All right. So for my treasurer's report, there's a series of items. Majority of them are routine for year end, and there's one at the end that's once every 5 years. That I'll get to, but first I have my financial report for the month of May. I'll kind of briefly go over it. The supplemental report that we usually go over. As we've been talking about our debt expense, so this is for the month end of May, where total revenues were about 3.4 million lower than the previous year. I'll get to that as we get to that section. Expenditures are about $3.3 million higher, and our cash is about $9.9 million less through May from the previous year. Compared to the forecast, our revenues are trending about $1 million less. Expenditures are trending about $128,000 through May, but I do have the June numbers, and we're about $450,000 less than the forecast. So as a comparable positive trend, or unfavorable impact of 8.9 as of May, and then it'll probably about half of that through as we close out the fiscal year. Estimated cash balance is about 37.4 million, and our overall projected cash spend down is about 10.4 to 10.7 million dollars, and our projected ending cash balance of the 37.4, which is about 40% of projected expenditures. Looking at May compared to last May, revenues were down about 3.4, but it was a timing difference, as you remember last month. Revenues were up about the same amount due to the homestead and rollback reimbursements coming in April this year versus May of last year. Overall, revenues are about, year-to-date, revenues are about $3.4 million less, and that's a combination of the renewal levy coming off for the second half and the March tax settlement being about $1.2 million less. State revenues are about $649,000 higher, and that's primarily due to the performance bonus that we received. And then other revenues are up about $103,000, which includes a one-time county reimbursement of $882,000 for savings in their valuation expenses. These are offset by decreases in interest income of $463,000 and TIF revenue that was decreased by $130,000. And then, as I mentioned, we were trending below the forecast of $1 million. It's about 1.21%, which is primarily due to the final tax settlement that we received in March after the the forecast was done. Looking at expenditures, May compared to last May, we're about $53,000 less. Salaries are about $157,000, salary and benefits are about $157,000 higher, while other expenses are about $200,000 less, and which is primarily due to timing of invoices. Because you can see on the year-to-date, we're about $3.3 million higher than the previous year-to-date. Salaries are about $2.4 million higher, while purchase services are about close to $1 million higher, and other expenses are about $75,000 less. And some of the increases in the purchase services and other expenditures is professional services, which is nurses, OTs, and PTs, they're about $227,000 higher. Utilities are about $100,000 higher. Special education placements through May payments, they're about $400,000 higher. Other transportation services, they're about $155,000 higher. And then through this time of year, textbooks were about $80,000 lower. And then, as I said, for the revenues part, as we're trending compared to the forecast, we're about $1 million less, which was due to the tax collections. I'm hoping that offsets with the July and August advance. As I speak of that, the county just sent out notification that the August settlement will now not be received until September, which is due to the tax bills going out later. So hopefully with that delay, I think we'll be good on cash flow based on the available cash that we have, but hopefully it captures the lag as there was in the first half of the year when the bills went out late and they kept the same settlement date. And expenditures through May, they were trending about $128,000. As we're closing out the fiscal year, it's looking like more like $450,000. In a $94 million budget, that's pretty close. It was about about 0.5% variance, so kind of one of the closest that we've had in recent times. So it was pretty. The forecast, and based on that, the forecast was pretty tight, and it was the tax collections that kind of swung it. So, any questions on that? And then, depending on how interest, we'll find out tomorrow when we get our bank statements, how interest comes in, the revenues is forecasting pretty close as to what it was in May as well. So. All right, if there's no questions, moving on to item 2. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the following Strongsville Education Foundation grants for transportation expenses for elementary and for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade field trips, and for expenses for early learning preschool in-house field trip for fiscal year '26 be approved in the total amount of $25,074.75. And you can see the cost listed there below. So that was from the, we received the check, that was from the Strongsville Education Foundation for continuing to pay for those field trips.
Can I just say something, George?
Yeah.
I just want to say a special thank you to the Strongsville Education Foundation. At the time like this, when we're having to look at everything we're having to cut, instills a little bit of hope that we still have these things, and we have community groups who are still going out of their way for our kids, and that these things stay. And that means a lot right now, so thank you.
Item 3, it's the annual transfer in advance of funds to close out the fiscal year. So in the first grouping is transfers from the general fund to cover negative funds and other funds, and these are annual transfers that we do as, for some of these funds, this is their only source of revenues. And to close out the fiscal year for compliance purposes, we can't end the year, these funds can't end the year in a negative cash. The first grouping is the uniform school supplies. These are the student fees, the consumable student fees. Each school has their own separate account. The expenses come out of there, and then dollars for the student fees go in there, and sometimes there's a little bit of a timing difference when collections are coming in, and also the expenses for students that are on free lunch come out of there, but there's no revenue coming in. And then also they're beginning to purchase items for next year, at the end of this year, so they're there at the beginning of the school year. So that total transfer to Fund 009 is $32,362.04. Our termination benefits fund, that's a separate fund that pays the severance when employees separate for their cash out of their vacation and sick time for those that are retiring. That is paid out of the Fund 35, and the only source of revenue is just a transfer from the general fund. So that's an annual transfer at the end of the year. It's paid in this fund, which is legally allowed, and most school districts do it, so it's not counted against their cost per pupil. The annual transfer for the athletics, the high school is $132,620, and the middle school was $15,094. We did have budget for the both of them, about $235,000, so it is about $100,000 less than what was budgeted. So total general fund transfers is $893,291.73. The next grouping is the turf savings from the general fund to the 004 for turf replacement. Years ago, about 10 years ago, when we went from grass to turf, we calculated there was an annual savings of $35,000 for having turf over grass, and that annual savings has been put into the 004 fund and building up to offset future turf replacement. So that's a continuation of that. And then also as part of the Southwest agreement that we had from the previous year, this was the final year for that, is we were paying $50,000 for the transfer for the trainers. They had a prorated schedule that would offset the costs, and those dollars would go back into the turf fund. Those savings would go in the turf fund. So that's that transfer. And then the last grouping is advances to cover your deficits and the federal grants. So the way that the federal grants work, they're reimbursable grants, so we have to spend the dollars first and then put in a cash advance from the state to get those dollars. So with June being the last month, you have to spend them in June, and then it crosses over fiscal year when you receive them. So there's an annual advance at the end of the year to bring these funds to positive, or to zero, so we can close out our books. And then once we do our final expenditure report in the fall, we'll get these dollars back, and then these funds will advance the dollars back to the general fund. Any questions on transfers and advances? All right. These are the final amended appropriations, and as you'll see on the exhibit, there's several reductions in appropriations, and it's basically due to a compliance test that we have to do for the end of the year. For the final appropriation measure, there's 3 compliance tests, budgetary compliance tests. First is the appropriations in the financial system must match the Board of Education approval. Appropriations cannot exceed beginning cash plus estimated revenues, and then appropriations cannot exceed beginning cash plus actual revenues. So this is why sometimes it takes me till the last minute to get this in, because we have to finalize everything to bring the appropriations down. So throughout the year, we're compliant on the first 2 tests. It's the last test, that is the end of the fiscal year adjustment, to reduce these budgets based on actual available resources. Any questions? Item 5 is the annual approval of new funds for fiscal year '27. It's the student activities for the freshman class that's coming in, setting up their student activity fund for the class of 2030, and then all the new grant fund and SECs for fiscal year '27, as each grant year has to have its own fund and special cost center. The next listing is the annual student activities budgets for fiscal year '27. And then item 7 is the temporary appropriation for fiscal year '27, which starts tomorrow, July 1. Typically, in the past, we've done a temporary appropriation. We have until September 30th to do the permanent appropriation. In the past, what we've done was the temporary, and then as contracts are finalized, and we also had till October, November to do the 5-year forecast. I would link them together. Now that the 5-year forecast, or 4-year forecast is due in August, once I do the forecast, I'll link the appropriations to that in the August meeting. That way, the appropriations and the forecast are linked, so we'll have it at the August meeting. I don't anticipate it to change much. The only thing I'm going to do this next month, going into August, as we do the forecast, is look at, I was able to get the new teachers that were coming off to replace the other ones already filled in. It's the classified folks, any hiring and any additional contracts that we received that are final. This is the annual, the next item 8 is the annual athletic event ticket and pass pricing for 26-27. There's no changes from this year, it's just the annual approval. Second to last, item 9, this is an action item. It's the annual approval, the annual renewal of the food service management company contract renewal for Chartwell's. This is the 5th and final year. If we want to continue with an outside vendor, we would have to go out for bid in this, sometime in next fiscal year for the following fiscal year. Typically, we go out around the spring.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Helms?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And the last one is also an action item. It is a resolution for bids for depository contracts. Again, this is one for our depository contracts, banking. We have to go out for bid every 5 years. And this one's a little slightly different, where we can accept all the bids that come in, and within that 5 years, it gives us flexibility to make any changes if we want to make changes to banking. So we're going out to bid as we're required to do. We'll evaluate, and if we want to make any changes or bring on a different bank for any services, we have that ability to do so during that 5-year period.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. Can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Helms?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And with that, that concludes my report.
Any questions for George? Thanks, George.
George, how come sports pricing on the tickets, why are we holding that? Did we raise it last year, or how often do we look at that number?
Jason looks at it every year. It's kind of aligned with the conference as well.
Okay.
So Jason puts the athletic department puts a recommendation, and it's closely aligned from the conference level, as the conference wants to keep the pricing consistent with other conference schools.
Just, it is a conference decision,
Okay.
so they all get together
It's
and
passed
talk,
through.
and, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Dr. Iva.
The first item is a contingency calendar, so every year we have to determine dates that we would use should we need to make up school days. We really never have to for grades K to 12, simply because we have so many, we're above and beyond the minimum hours required. Preschool, we are close. I think we have 5, if I remember correct. So those are 3 Fridays. The preschool doesn't go to school on Fridays, so these are 3 Fridays that we would use should we need to make up days. Grades K to 12 would be after our last day of school. Moving on to number 2, we had a handful of donation agreements for the turf project. At the last meeting, we have one more from our Strongsville athletic boosters, so it's an action item. Be resolved upon my recommendation that the donation agreement between the Strongsville City School District and Strongsville Athletic Boosters be approved as set forth in the exhibit.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Helms,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum.
Yes. Motion carries.
So a special thank you to the Athletic Boosters for their generous donation and partnership, and we look forward to the next 10 years of working with them on this project. Next item is also an action item. Before I read the action item, just as a reminder, this is for our drug testing company. So this is just approving the rate of pay. So if you vote yes for this, you're voting to continue drug testing. If you vote no, you're voting to not continue drug testing. The details of what we actually drug test for are a separate discussion. So process procedures are separate. This is just kind of the go, no-go idea. So be it resolved upon my recommendation that the Board of Education approves Great Lake Biomedical LLC to administer student drug testing at a rate of $19.75 per test.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. Any questions or comments?
This is for the testing rate, not necessarily the scope.
Correct.
Understood.
Anything else? George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell,
No.
Mr. Wall,
No.
Mr. Helms,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum.
Yes.
Motion carried.
So with that motion passing, I'll come back at another meeting. We could talk about scope, process. With that, I'm going to have Mr. Bruckner come up with his items for business services for the month.
Good evening, everyone. There's 4 items in the business services section this evening. The first one is a resolution by recommendation of the superintendent. Sorry, I'm in the wrong section. Nope. Yeah, recommendation of the superintendent, Board of Education approve the annual membership renewal and safety program with Ohio Schools Council for the amount not to exceed $2,759.06. The second one is the monthly school resource officer reimbursement per the exhibit in that item. The third is the payment in lieu of for the students listed that are not part of our regular routes or go to a school that's not covered by our regular routes. And the last one is the recommendation of the superintendent that we purchase property, inland marine, boiler, machinery, crime, automobile, general liability, umbrella insurance from Liberty Mutual Insurance Company. The agent is Todd Associates Incorporated, as endorsed by the Ohio Schools Council at a 1-year contracted price not to exceed $600,055.75 for the period of July 1st, 2026 through July 1st, 2027, which includes all school groups. This is an increase from last year's cost, which was $560,897.65. And then it also includes all of the groups covered under this insurance, which includes Strongsville Council PTA, Strongsville High School PTA, Strongsville Middle School PTA, Chapman, Kinsner, Muraski, Farrar, Whitney Elementary's PTA, Strongsville Early Learning Preschool PTA, Early Childhood Preschool PTA, After Prom Committee, the Booster Club, the Athletic Booster Club, Hockey Association, Strongsville Music Boosters, both choral and instrumental divisions.
Any questions for Steve? All right, next we'll have Aaron share the curriculum updates for the month.
Good evening. I have 11 items tonight for you. Item 1 is a student teacher placement, and that's with our agreement with Baldwin Wallace University. Item 2 is for student teacher internship placements, one at John Carroll University and one from Baldwin Wallace University. Item 3 is textbooks for our College Credit Plus program in partnership with Cuyahoga Community College, approximate cost of $35,000. Item 4 is an agreement with Cross Thread Solutions. This is for interpreting services for our students who are English learners and/or their families. Item 5 is an overnight trip for the boys freshman, JV, varsity football teams, July 20 through the 23rd, to travel to Ohio Northern University. Next item is an overnight trip for the Strongsville High School varsity, JV, and freshman cheerleaders. And this is July 7th through 9th to participate in a cheer camp at the University of Mount Union. Item 7 is a student-teacher memorandum of understanding with Baldwin Wallace, as shown in the affiliation agreement exhibit. And the last few items are our handbooks for the 26-27 school year. We have the elementary, the high school, the early learning, and the athletic handbook. And the middle school one was approved at a previous meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Next, Andy will come up with the student service report.
Good evening, members of the board. I have 4 items for you. The first is an agreement with Solutions Behavior Consulting. We've had a long-term partnership with them for probably exceeding 13 years now, where they help us provide services to students, especially in the areas of ABA. The agreement is attached there. Item number 2 is Applewood Centers. This is for tuition for a student to attend in Gerson School for the amount of $38,732.46. Next is tuition for a student to attend Monarch School. That is part of Belfair Jewish Children's Bureau, and that is in the total of $106,195.05. That includes extended school year. The last is to rescind an agreement. Previously, we approved tuition for a student to attend STEPS. That student has relocated outside of Strongsville, and that is there to recoup the $91,000 tuition.
Questions for Andy?
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Next, Ryan will share the human resource report.
Good evening. I have the following items in human resources for your consideration. Item 1, appointments, certificated. Item 2, appointment, non-certificated. Item 3, changes in status, non-certificated. Item 4, contract recommendation, non-certificated. Item 5, security services, Strongsville Police Department. Item 6, volunteers, chaperones. Item 7 is a memorandum of understanding, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the memorandum of understanding between the Strongsville Board of Education and the Strongsville Education Association as set forth in the exhibit be accepted.
Questions for Ryan?
No, thank you.
And finally, under technology, it's a 3-year annual pay agreement with CDW Education for the purpose of the Google Workspace for Education Plus. As you can see there, all that provides, and the cost is based on our enrollment, and the annual cost is $37,800. Any questions on that? With that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, a report on Polaris. Even though the halls are quiet, the students are out on summer break. They're still busy at Polaris. They are enrolling for fall classes for 14 adult job and career training programs, from healthcare to skilled training, to skilled trades. Sorry, you can find out more about that on their website. They had another very successful Camp Discovery. This year's adventure welcomed a record-breaking 225 campers. These are students entering grades 6 to 8. And they had an exciting week of hands-on learning, creativity, and career exploration. Last but not least, the Polaris culinary team was recognized by the Ohio House of Representatives. State Representative Mike Davila and Chris Glassburn recognized the students' accomplishments while highlighting the important role career technical education plays in preparing Ohio's future workforce and strengthening the state's economy. We want to congratulate these talented future culinary professionals and the staff who guided them on this remarkable achievement and well-deserved recognition. That concludes my report. Mr. Bissell, Ms. Bissell. Mr. Wall, Ms. Bissell, sorry. Report on legislation.
Thank you. Legislation if you remember back to last June 2025, the state passed in House Bill 96 that we had to have a policy regarding artificial intelligence. The deadline for that is tomorrow. We'll be having action later on in this meeting. We were provided kind of a model policy back in December, and I'm really proud of how we've localized ours. If you have an opportunity, please go read it. I think it's something for folks to be excited about, that we are taking a tone and tenor of seriousness with regard to artificial intelligence and technology, and it's a strong first step. I'd like to say it's kind of a balance sheet, so while we'll be turning it in tomorrow or tonight, we'll be reviewing it more frequently than other policies, knowing that this space moves particularly quickly and that what the standard and what the bar is constantly shifting. We will hopefully come back and readdress this and look at it in the future to make sure that we are keeping up with expectations and what's coming out and what our students and our teachers need. Bills moving through Columbus. No action yet, but there's 4 things worth noting. House Bill 45, otherwise known as the Baby Olivia Act. It passed the House 93-27 back in November. It's in the Senate Education Committee. It had a hearing in March. It would require grades 5 through 12 to view a fetal development video as part of health instruction. Parental opt-out is included in that particular bill. The medical community has raised concerns about how the video depicts gestational development. House Bill 486, otherwise known as the Charlie Kirk American Heritage Act, passed the House 62-27 back in November. It was referred to the Senate Education Committee back in February 2026. Now, this is not a mandate, but it does affirm that teachers may discuss positive historical impacts of religion and Judeo-Christian values in American history. House Bill 34, the Historical Education Display Act, passed the Senate 2310 in November and is now in House Committee. It would require grades 4 through 12 classrooms to display at least 4 documents from state-approved lists that includes founding documents of our country and the 10 Commandments. Districts do not have to fund these displays. They can accept donations. Part of that bill with the donations is what's caused additional legal scrutiny. Similar laws exist in Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and are all facing court challenges because of that donation clauses. SB 156 is Success Sequence. It passed the Senate in October, and it's gone through 1 session now of the Education Committee hearing. It would create a state curriculum around graduating, getting a job, and marrying before having children. This would make it a requirement to attend and pass this class to be considered for graduation. And then SB 19, the academic intervention. It was signed by Governor DeWine just 6 days ago, so very recent. It requires districts to provide free academic intervention to any student who scores limited on a state math or ELA assessment. The intervention options do include high-dose tutoring, additional instruction time, and/or extended calendar. New math advancement requirements starting in July 2026, so that would be tomorrow. 7th graders scoring advanced on math assessments must be placed in Algebra 1 for 8th grade unless there is a parental opt-out. This particular bill passed the Senate unanimously, noting one of the less contentious items this legislative cycle. And that concludes the legislative report.
Next up, Board Liaison Reports. City Council, Mr. Micco.
Yes, the City Council is currently on recess for July and August, but they did meet back June 15th. Similar to us, they are dealing with property tax issues. They did move forward with what they described as step 1 of a 3-step process. Step 1 being to send to the county a request for valuation for a 1 mil fire levy that they intend to place on the ballot for the voter. Step 2 will be to actually choose to put it on the ballot, very similar to our process. And then they were very cognizant of the fact that step 3 is for the voters to actually approve it for it to pass and go into effect. And then they also announced that they are seeking input on our walkability within the city. And there is a survey that they're asking the residents to complete. So you can either go to strongsville.org, and there's a link on the homepage, or you can go to Facebook if you have Facebook, and go to the Strongsville site, and there's also a link for the survey there. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Strongsville Education Foundation, I just want to reiterate what Michelle said and repeat that number, $25,074.75. That goes a long ways for our kids, K through 8, to be able to go on field trips, and we really, really appreciate everything that they do for us throughout the year, everything the PTAs do for our kids. The support we have from our community is quite amazing. So just want to reiterate what you said, and that leads into casino night. Everybody mark your calendars for Saturday, November 21st. It's at the Encore Event Center from 7 to 11 p.m. If you would check their websites, there are sponsorships available now. Tickets will be on sale very soon. And that concludes my report. Michelle, PTA Council?
There's no PTA council meetings in the summer, so that should resume in September.
Southwest General Hospital, they meet once a year, so that has passed. Moving to board committee reports. Finance Committee. Mr. Mika.
Our next meeting is to be announced, and that concludes my report.
Policy Committee. Michelle?
Same story there. That next meeting will be announced, usually in the fall. Concludes my report.
Facilities Committee, same, to be determined. Eric, Business Advisory Committee.
I believe it's the same.
I like that section. We are now on the adoption of the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education on the adoption of consent calendar at this point in the agenda means that all items on the agenda designated as type dash action consent, which constitute the consent calendar, are adopted by a single motion unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that such items be removed from the consent calendar and voted on separately. Do we have anything that needs to be removed? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Michelle, second by Eric. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes. Motion carries. Next up, we have board policies. Third reading, waiving our first and second readings. Be it resolved that the Strongsville City Schools Board of Education approve the policy listed. This is a replacement policy 7540.09 for AI, artificial intelligence. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Eric or Michelle?
Which
No.
artificial intelligence engine did we use to write the policy?
A little bit of all
I
of them.
bet there was a bunch that went into
There are a
that.
few.
I think it was a,
Plethora of,
plethora.
yeah.
it was a group intelligence effort, I'm sure.
But there was thought behind it as well.
As a geek, it was very interesting to me, and I thought I concur and compliment Michelle and Eric. I thought it was thoughtful and puts us in a nice position to say that we need to address AI in our schools, but at the same time recognizes that, you know, by the time people have finished reading it, I think the landscape will have changed and we'll have to rewrite it. But the good news is we'll use AI to help us with that.
Any other questions? Hearing none, George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes. Item 2 is a first reading for revised policy 2540.08, bring your own technology program.
So this was an item we talked about, but there was not consensus amongst the policy committee. So when that happens, we bring it to the full group for discussion. So George, if you can click on the link there, appreciate it. And so as you can see up here, there's a current policy, there's a revised policy, and summarizing from the policy committee, there's not issues with the policy as written. So this policy was created and implemented when we didn't have one-to-one Chromebooks. We allowed students to bring devices to school to use technology in the classrooms. Obviously, since we now have Chromebooks for every student, and those Chromebooks have safety filters, ability for us to communicate holistically with students in class, to see what's going on in their screens, to manage state testing, a variety of things, where it's very important for students to have our technology and our devices for instructional purposes. So basically, what the revised policy says is, hey, if you want to bring your own device to school, we're not talking, this is not a cell phone policy, this is, you know, my MacBook, my laptop, my bigger Chromebook. You can do that, but you're going to use it not for core instruction. You can use it in your study halls, you can use it at other times, you can use it if a teacher says it's okay, but you're going to use our devices. So we were all in agreement with that policy. What we wanted to bring to the board for, under this first reading, is if you click on that device option, which is the last tab, George. So if you click on that hamburger right there, you go. Yeah. One more, device option. Yeah. So in this device option, Eric brought up some suggestions, ideas about maybe we can look at more robust devices for our students. And we looked through a variety of options, and this was the one that we all landed on that was the most livable, can be implemented in a practical way. And basically what this says, and I won't go through it with you in detail, but it says, hey, here's our normal Chromebook that every student gets. There's technology fees that are part of the fees that help defer some of the cost. Any student that wants that and is good with that, have at it, no difference. But if you want the upgraded Chromebook, which means you're going to get fireworks? Okay.
This is important stuff.
Yeah. So if you want a larger screen, more RAM, you know, and a touch screen, we can provide that for you, and that charge will be, that additional cost will be taken on by the parent. So, hey, I want my kid to have a better device. I can still meet all the school requirements and do that. And then you could see the potential positives and challenges that are listed there below. And Ms. Bissell, Mr. Wall, if there's any other color context you want to provide on these options. But this is the heart of where the board needs to give guidance of, do we want to stay the course with what we've got, or do we want to add this as an option? This would be for 27, 28 because of ordering cycles. So, Eric, Michelle, anything else that you'd like to share?
I just wanted to ask a question. Are we just introducing this tonight, or are we having full discussion, or, you know, or does that happen on second reading? What is that process?
So ultimately, we got to get to by the third reading of, the policy is the policy. It's the procedure part that we've got to get clarity on. So the device option is not a part of the policy. But that's something where we need guidance. So ultimately, by the third reading, if you're going to approve the policy, you can give direction on this.
Okay, so we would have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And we just, I forget the gentleman's name, we just had a new hire in technology.
Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, we met him, you know, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
What's his thumb in the wind feeling on these things?
So he was a part of these discussions for both the AI policy and this one. So his discussion was, from an operations standpoint, it's easier just to keep it as one device, one type of device for break fix, but it's, Dave Binkley and Jason both reviewed it and said this is a livable option, understanding that if you want to consider the break fix piece of it, we have to have more parts on hand and different devices to manage, and kids are going to get loaners. That will be a different quality than they're used to. If there's any concern of an equity standpoint of some kids, based on parental finances, may have the nicer devices or the upgraded devices versus the other kids, those were some of the comments that were made, but everybody said it's a livable option.
I'll give a little context. Why I brought this forward and positioned this idea was we're taking something away from folks and saying you can't bring your own device anymore. So that's different. And I think that while policies can create a floor, and I like that, we do that frequently, that this is the minimum baseline standards, I want to make sure that this policy doesn't have the unintended effect of creating a ceiling too, and that we really shouldn't have the lowest common denominator technology. And having an option out there that works for our management perspective of all of these devices. So the thing that why we're moving away from bring your own device is that we can't effectively manage them. So to solve that problem, these devices you'll see are exactly purchased from the same place, they're from the same provider, they're in the same flow. But it gives families flexibility to make technology choices and feel empowered to decide what's best for their student. Now, why would someone want to do that? Some people use their Chromebooks for things outside of school that might need a little extra horsepower. They're concerned that they'll struggle by senior year. Some kids need more assistive technologies, a bigger or brighter screen. A touch screen would help them. Those are all different reasons why someone might want to have something that's different from the standard. And so that was my goal, is not to give a full menu of options, but to give families an option so that we're not setting a ceiling. If you want to have a better experience, there is one for you, and you still have access to those supplemented dollars that all students get. So just like we don't legislate what backpacks someone has or how they dress at school, I think it's important that we don't put our thumb on here and create kind of a universal standard that has consequences which aren't exactly seen when you're doing something like this.
Just to kind of flesh out the kind of conversations that we had in the committee, I appreciate all those things that Eric wants, and actually, wouldn't mind them for my own kids. I have two hang-ups at this particular moment. One is that, and it kind of says it here, but it's a little bit subtle in the challenges, but it will likely increase some costs to the district in terms of labor to manage them, to track who's buying them. Those kind of labor costs are likely going to raise. And when I just had to talk about cutting $5 million, that causes me a little bit of pause at this particular moment. And the other concern I have is an equity concern. We're going to literally put two computers on a desk, and you're going to be able to tell which parent paid for the extra, because you'll be able to see that it's bigger. I suppose the backpack argument is similar in that already happens, and I think that's a fair argument. But that's just the thing that's kind of rolling around in the back of my head is do we want to create such an overt equity challenge?
So to be clear, today, the equity challenge is that many students roll in with a Chromebook and other ones roll in with a MacBook. So there's already, this is, if we adopted this option here, it's more corrective than what we even have today.
Can I ask a question of that, Cameron or Jenny? How common is, that was not something I have a high school student. I was never aware of that being a thing. How common is it?
I don't have a frame of reference for that.
Yeah, I don't know how many kids are bringing their own, MacBooks and things like that. I mean, I think phones are used a lot, when directed. But as far as their own devices that way, I would have to get more of a,
Talk to the high school
talk to high
administration,
schools,
yeah.
talk to teachers to see, yeah.
I mean, what I would say is, obviously, it's happening because they proposed a new policy to address it, so to the frequency, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Do we have a ballpark of the additional cost?
I'd have to dig into that.
Okay, just curious.
Would this be for all grades, K through, or, well, it would actually be second through 12, or?
It's proposed as it could be for any grade. But that's
So
something.
currently, we have the one-to-one model, and it's been a while since I've thought about it, but we start assigning Chromebooks in kindergarten. And then, if I remember right, they get a new one for middle school, and then they get a new one for high school. So, but that segues really nice, Tim, into there's a bunch of conversation right now to move away from screens, especially at the younger ages. So This may be moot in a couple of months anyways.
Well, and didn't we just talk
Wasn't
about
one
the
to one on the
carts?
list?
Yeah, adding the carts back was on the list for possible
the-
reductions.
Elementary level,
Yeah.
Okay, so it's first reading, so we have time to digest. I'm glad you
Yep.
guys were able to give us your opinions and
Yeah.
foresight, so we will come back to it. All right. Superintendent's timely information, it's still named that.
No, we have a new name.
Oh, I see, we have to change it.
Yeah, Dan and I have worked on this, so we have changed it to Mustang Momentum to try to reflect the continued momentum in teaching and learning that we're going to continue to do no matter what. And, you know, as we bring you stories, like it says there, stories of learning and leadership and influence and impact and all of the things that we want for our students as we try to create those equitable learning experiences for them. So that's the new name, Mustang Momentum, so. One of the common questions I get, just personally, is do you work all summer? And what are you doing all summer when the kids aren't in school? And so, actually, it's pretty busy in the summer as we continue to plan for next year. But one of the things that many people may not be aware of is that we still have kids that are being educated in the summertime. So just want to highlight a couple of the opportunities that we continue to provide for our students throughout the summer. One is extended school year. This continues to support our students who receive specialized services, and especially for students that struggle with transitions and need that continuity and need to ensure that they don't regress in what they've learned. And so what's exciting about this is that it's staffed by our own Strongsville City Schools employees who know our kids. And so the things that they're able to offer and do right off the bat, because they know they know what they've learned, they know what to continue with, and what skills they need. And so it's just exciting. I think we have 2 more weeks after this one still left, where our students are coming to the middle school and again receiving those services. And next, we have summer learning opportunities. This is primarily for our high school students. Where we have a lot of kids. We had a record number this year. I think it was 203 kids that received opportunities to advance coursework, especially in the areas of financial literacy, economics, health, and physical education. So what that means is when they take those in the summer and they have to pay for those courses, it allows their schedules to open up a little bit, to take more advanced options, or to take more elective courses throughout the year to get those required courses out of the way. Additionally, we had students come in, over 30 of them, to get missing credits that they need to stay on track for graduation, and so that was a good showing and a good participation with them. And then also there are some that are contingent on getting their credits to be able to go to Polaris, which is a great opportunity for our kids. And so for them to get that opportunity to get those credits so that they for sure can continue their education at Polaris or take some classes there is really important. So just want to commend our staff for putting these opportunities together. It's time, it's energy, it's effort while we're ending the school year to try to get this going as well. So just a wonderful job by everybody. And then finally, just exciting to announce that I think it was, I don't know, it's been many, many years, 13th straight year in a row, there it is, 13th straight year in a row that we've been recognized as one of the best communities for music education by the National Association of Music Merchants. And again, just in terms of what we do musically for our kids, we're one of 1,008 school districts nationwide, one of only 57 districts in Ohio that get this recognition, and one of just 20 school districts in our area to be recognized by NAM. And it's just a prestigious award, recognizes the efforts, the talents of not only our teachers, but our students, our families who support us, and booster clubs as well. So congratulations to our music teachers. Do you want to continue? Okay, I get to do time. Now we're back to timely information. So we have our open houses scheduled. So everything is on our website if you want more information on times and kind of, sometimes it's by grade level or by level. So elementary, open house will be Thursday, August 13th. Middle school is again on the 13th. early learning preschool will be on the 17th of August, and the high school is August 20th. So don't want to put all of a sudden a time on summer ending, but want to make sure that our families understand when our open houses are and can mark their calendars accordingly. Also, I know that stores are already gearing up for supplies, and some people like to get those early and get the best deals. So supply lists are on our website as well. You can click on the Find It Fast menu to find those. And don't forget, Ohio Sales Tax Holiday is August 7th through 9th, so that's coming up. That'll come up quick. And then finally, again, first days of 26, 27, hard to believe. Thursday, August 18th, our students in grades 1st through 9th grades will attend along with our kindergartners for just their orientation that day. And then Wednesday, August 19th, we'll welcome back all of our students, 10th through 12th grades, preschool, and all of our kindergarten students will come back for their first official day. So we will continue to prep and plan to get ready. Thank you.
I always felt when my kids were little, July 4th, that was it. Then it
Yeah.
was time to start getting ready.
Yeah, it goes fast after that.
It does, it really does, yeah, thank you. All right, Board of Education, other, are there any other?
Do you want to announce homecoming, or do you want
I'm
me to?
not thinking about that yet.
It's never too early to think about Chamber of Commerce 2026 Homecoming Festival, which is Wednesday, July 29th through Saturday, August 1st, 2026.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous?
Am I able to touch on City Club a little bit?
For sure.
Yeah, so rib burn-off was 2 weekends ago, I think, already at this point. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We had an extremely strong showing. Weather was absolutely perfect for those of you that were in town. Mid to low 70s and sunny, a little bit of breeze. Fireworks were fantastic. I think everybody had a great time. I think it was a record turnout that we had for the City Club, so we're pretty excited about that and looking forward to Breakfast on the Bridge come September. So thanks for everybody, part of the community, those that volunteered, City Club members, and beyond. So it was an excellent event.
Thank you. Next up, we have meeting notifications. A regular Board of Education meeting work session will be held on Thursday, July 9th, 2026 at 6:30 PM in the Administration Building Meeting Room, 18199 Cook Avenue in Strongsville here. And a special Board of Education meeting, board retreat, will be held on Thursday, July 30th, 2026 at 6:30 PM right here in the Admin Building, Cook Avenue. Yes, I will have to be in two places at one time. Next, executive session. We do have need for executive session.
To consider matters required to be kept confidential by federal law, regulations, or state statutes.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Eric. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Helms?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes. Motion carries. We'll enter into executive session at approximately 9:15. I do not see reason to come back out into and resume public session. Just want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. Enjoy the weekend and be safe. Have a great night.